Good afternoon, and thank you very much for inviting me. The issues you will discuss today are very important and very timely. Investors have shown a lot of interest in ESG investment over the past few years. Reflecting this growing interest, there is now a lot more demand for ESG-related data and information. As is well known, a wide range of different standards and ratings are being promoted in the market, and the ESG data and information that is available can be inconsistent. This can be very confusing for companies, firms, and investors. For securities regulators, a big challenge is that we do not have an explicit regulatory handle on ESG data providers and rating services. But even so, there are steps we can take to make the information they provide more comparable and consistent, and ultimately, decision useful. Green and sustainable finance is now a high priority on the regulatory agenda for the SFC. Our starting point in Hong Kong is that we are a leading international financial center, and we also play a unique role as the gateway between mainland China and the rest of the world. This means what we do in Hong Kong can have an impact in other places as well. We recognized early on that the financial sector has a crucial role to play in the transition to a more sustainable economy. With this in view, the SFC works closely with the Hong Kong government and other local regulators to coordinate the effort to develop a greener, more sustainable financial system. The SFC initiated the establishment of a cross-agency steering group for this purpose, as well as to support the government's broader climate strategies, including the goal to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Another priority for the SFC has been listed company and investment product disclosures. This was a key focus of the strategic framework for green finance we published a few years ago. Our first step was to find out how asset management firms were considering ESG factors. Most of them said they saw ESG factors as a source of financial risk. However, only a few of them integrated these factors into their investment and risk management processes in a consistent way. Our next step was to require fund managers to take climate-related risks into account in their investment and risk management processes and make appropriate disclosures to investors. These requirements will be rolled out in phases starting in August next year. Fund managers will then expect the companies they invest in to explain clearly how they manage the climate-related risks of their operations. Here in Hong Kong, listed companies were first encouraged to disclose ESG matters on a voluntary basis nearly 10 years ago. And in 2019, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange introduced new mandatory ESG disclosure requirements, including a statement from the board setting out its consideration of ESG matters. A related trend is that the SFC has received more applications from funds with a green or sustainability focus over the past few years. Our key concern with these funds is whether they really integrate ESG factors into the investment process and to what extent. And we saw the need to set out our expectations of ESG funds in order to address this issue head-on. Providing a clearer guidance for asset managers sends an important message. Asset managers are expected to do more to make it clear to investors how they take ESG factors into account. At the moment, we are evaluating ESG disclosures much more closely. We are also looking for more ways to reduce opportunities for greenwashing. Another regulatory priority is coordinating how climate and environmental factors are managed in the financial sector. Climate change has had a visible impact on the environment. It also presents a systemic risk, which could have a material impact on the finance industry and the real economy. Governments worldwide have recognized the urgent need to address climate change, seen through the attention given to COP26. Sustainable finance is a key tool to enable the transition to a greener economy. The IFRS Foundation recently announced the formation of an International Sustainability Standards Board, which will create a comprehensive global baseline of sustainability disclosure standards. The SFC is closely following the development of these standards. We participate in a technical experts group which worked on the recently published prototype standard, with a view to potentially seeing how these could be adopted in Hong Kong. This could include incorporating them into Hong Kong's audit framework and listing rules. These standards will be a key part of Hong Kong's sustainable finance strategy. This will set out clear regulatory expectations for the financial sector. It will also help make corporate disclosures more transparent, reliable, and comparable. All in all, the measures that we, together with our domestic and international counterparts, are implementing will help ensure that reliable, relevant, comparable, and consistent data will be available to authorities and market participants, including ESG data providers and ratings services. As you might be aware, the SFC's Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ashley Alden, chairs the board of the International Organization of Securities Commissions, or IOSCO. In a consultation paper published in August, IOSCO proposed recommendations to mitigate risks stemming from the activities of ESG ratings and data providers and deal with potential conflicts of interest. Adopting these recommendations can help ensure transparency and provide clear definitions for users of ESG ratings and information, reducing gaps and inconsistencies in reporting. Today, I have briefly described some of the things we are doing to develop a clear regulatory framework which will help meet investors' growing demand for decision-useful ESG information. We want investors to have the best available information about the impact of the listed companies and funds they invest in so they can make more informed decisions. This is just a start. A lot more needs to be done to make sure that companies and fund managers' green claims are substantiated by clear and transparent ESG data. And a lot more needs to be done to harmonize standards and frameworks, and to channel investments to where they are needed to transition to a more sustainable economy. We look forward to working with all our partners at home and abroad to achieve these goals. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.